A truck that beat a Ferrari? Yes, it happened. The GMC Cyclone was a small black truck that shocked the world with its speed. Then Dodge made an even crazier truck by putting a Viper engine into a Ram. From weird trucks with no roofs to luxury pickups nobody wanted, these are the strangest trucks ever made. Tune in as we reveal a truck so rare, most people don't believe it exists. The strangest trucks ever built. Imagine pulling up to a stoplight in the early 90s and watching a little black truck leave a Ferrari in the dust. That was the GMC Cyclone, a turbocharged 4.3-liter V6 beast with 280 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque. It hit 0 to 60 miles per hour in 5.3 seconds, faster than a Ferrari 348. This was a truck built purely for speed, with all-wheel drive keeping it glued to the road and a sleek, all-black look that made it look mean. Only 2,998 were made, and if that wasn't exclusive enough, there were 10 special Marlboro Cyclones with Targa tops and Corvette seats. It was the kind of truck that shouldn't have existed, and yet, here we are still talking about it. But what if there was an even wilder secret? And then Dodge said, "Hold my beer." Someone had the genius idea of stuffing a Viper's 8.3-liter V10 engine into a Ram, and the result was the SRT-10, a 500-horsepower monster that became the fastest production truck in the world. This thing hit 60 miles per hour in just 4.9 seconds and topped out at 154.5 miles per hour. It even came with a 6-speed manual transmission because why not? It had 22-inch wheels, a hood scoop that looked like it belonged on a spaceship, and a suspension that actually let it handle corners. It was ridiculous, loud, and completely unnecessary, which is exactly why it became legendary. Not to be outdone in the weird truck department, Chevrolet unleashed the SSR, a retro-styled convertible pickup that nobody really saw coming. It looked like something designed in an alternate reality. Big, rounded fenders, a retractable hardtop, and a 5.3-liter V8 at first, later upgraded to a 6.0-liter LS2, making 390 horsepower. It was heavy, awkward, and not exactly practical, but that didn't stop Chevy from building 24,000 of them. Today, they've gone from being a punchline to a low-key collectible because, let's face it, who doesn't want a convertible truck with muscle car power? Meanwhile, Subaru had its own brand of weird genius. Faced with a 25% import tariff on trucks, they decided to outsmart the system by bolting 2 rear-facing jump seats into the bed of the Brat, turning it into a passenger vehicle instead of a pickup. The result was a compact AWD, off-road capable truck that looked completely insane with passengers strapped into the bed like they were on an amusement park ride. It wasn't just a loophole gimmick, though. The Brat was a capable little machine, and even Ronald Reagan had one on his ranch. Today, it's an oddball classic that off-road enthusiasts and Subaru fans love to get their hands on. Volkswagen, never one to follow the crowd, decided to throw its hat into the pickup ring with the Rabbit pickup, a tiny fuel-efficient truck based on the Rabbit, Golf Mk 1. Unlike its American counterparts, this was a small front-wheel drive utility vehicle that prioritized efficiency over brute strength. The diesel version barely made 52 horsepower, but it could get over 40 miles per gallon, which made it perfect for small business owners who needed a truck without the fuel-guzzling downsides. It never became a massive seller, but today it's a cult favorite among collectors who appreciate its quirky charm and European practicality. But the list of bizarre trucks doesn't stop there. There was the Dodge Dakota convertible, because apparently someone thought a soft-top pickup was a good idea. It came out in the late 80s, lasted only a couple of years, and is now one of the rarest pickups you'll ever find. Then there was the Lincoln Blackwood, a luxury truck with a carpeted wood-paneled bed that nobody wanted. Lincoln thought they could merge high-end luxury with pickup practicality, but the truck was only sold for 1 year before it disappeared into obscurity. And let's not forget about the Ford Durango, a truck that started life as a Mustang before getting chopped up and turned into a pickup. Not a factory model, but rather a bizarre aftermarket conversion, the Durango is one of the rarest Mustang trucks out there. It had the heart of a pony car, but the soul of a confused utility vehicle. One of the strangest entries into the bizarre pickup world was the Chevrolet El Camino. Was it a car? Was it a truck? It was both, and it lived in this strange hybrid world that somehow worked. Ford tried the same thing with the Ranchero, creating a car-based truck that found its own niche fan base. These car-truck hybrids were practical in a way, offering cargo space without the size of a full pickup. But they never quite caught on the way traditional trucks did. Even Jeep got into the mix with their Gladiator, an idea that's been resurrected in modern times, but originally was a quirky mix of Jeep off-road capability and truck practicality. Jeep has always done things a little differently, and the original Gladiator was no exception. It was tough, weird-looking, and somehow managed to be both ahead of its time and completely out of place. There are plenty more weird, rare, and downright ridiculous trucks out there, from car-based utes to performance monsters that made no sense. But one thing's for sure, the weirder they were, the more we love them today. Whether it was a truck that could outrun a sports car, a convertible that defied logic, or a luxury pickup that missed the mark entirely. These bizarre creations remind us that sometimes automakers just go wild. Got a favorite bizarre truck? Let's hear it. From half-baked concepts to bizarre luxury experiments, these rides push the limits of what a truck could be, for better or worse. Some flopped so hard they disappeared almost immediately, while others have become rare gems that collectors drool over. Buckle up! This is going to be a wild ride. Ever seen a Ford Fairmont and thought, this would be cooler if it had a truck bed? No? Well, someone did. And thus, the Ford Durango was born, a bizarre fusion of a two-door coupe and a tiny pickup truck that nobody really asked for. But it happened. Ford never officially sold these, but an estimated 200 units made it onto the streets. Under the hood, you had a choice between a sluggish 2.3-liter inline-4 or a slightly beefier 5.0-liter V8. Not exactly muscle car levels of power, but it got the job done. It wasn't fast, it wasn't all that useful, and it definitely wasn't pretty. But the Durango had one thing going for it: being weirdly rare. These days, finding a Durango is like spotting Bigfoot at a gas station. Most have long since disappeared, but the few survivors are cherished by collectors who love their oddball charm. Want a pickup that confuses everyone at car shows? Start hunting for a Ford Durango. Here's a truck that Dodge actually built for real, with no chop shop required. The Dodge Dakota convertible is exactly what it sounds like. A pickup that lets you feel the wind in your hair while hauling a couch. Because, why not? Dodge, in partnership with American Sunroof Corporation, ASC, decided the world needed a convertible pickup, so they sliced the roof off the Dakota and gave it a foldable soft top. They weren't just messing around either. This thing actually made it to production, with around 2,842 units, built between 1989 and 1991. Luxury and trucks don't always mix. When they do, the results can be strange. Here are the pickups that tried. A luxury ride without purpose. Powered by a 3.9-liter V6 with 125 horsepower, and later a 5.2-liter V8. The Dakota convertible wasn't just about the gimmick, it could still tow and haul like a regular truck. But let's be real, most buyers weren't picking this thing up for its payload capacity. Dodge marketed it as a fun, beachy, open-air adventure vehicle, but the reality? People looking for a truck wanted something more enclosed and weatherproof. People looking for a convertible weren't exactly shopping in the pickup aisle. Unsurprisingly, sales were not great. After 3 years, Dodge pulled the plug, and the world was left with a handful of these roofless oddballs floating around. Lincoln had a brilliant idea. What if we made a truck, but removed everything that actually makes a truck useful? Enter the Lincoln Blackwood, a luxury pickup that cost a fortune, looked fancy, and was almost completely impractical. Lincoln took a Ford F-150, gave it a plush leather interior, fancy wood paneling, and one of the most baffling truck beds ever designed. The bed was fully carpeted, lined with stainless steel, and sealed under a non-removable powered tonneau cover. That meant it couldn't carry anything big, dirty, or remotely resembling cargo. Not surprisingly, buyers weren't impressed. Lincoln managed to sell just 3,356 units before pulling the plug after a single model year. Today, the Blackwood is a bizarre relic of a time when luxury brands were trying, and mostly failing, to break into the truck market. International Harvester might not be a household name anymore, but back in the day, they were Jeep's biggest off-road rival. And the Scout II SSII, Super Scout II, was their answer to the Jeep CJ, a no-frills, stripped-down off-road machine built to conquer anything in its path. They ripped off the doors and replaced them with snap-on vinyl covers. Windows? Who needs them? The interior was bare bones, and the roll bar came standard. This was a truck built for serious adventure, not grocery runs. Under the hood, you could get a 345 cubic inch V8, giving it some serious grunt. It had upgraded suspension, heavy-duty axles, and big knobby tires. Everything you needed to tackle rough terrain. International Harvester even put them in Baja 1,000 races to prove their off-road credibility. Only about 3,900 units were ever built, making the SSII a rare and highly sought-after collector's item today. If you ever see one, you're looking at a piece of off-road history that could have changed the game, if only it had stuck around longer. Mazda, being Mazda, decided that what the pickup world needed was a rotary engine. And that's exactly what they did with the Mazda Rotary Pickup, REPU, the only truck ever built with a Wankel engine. The Rep-U's 1.3-liter 13B rotary engine revved high and delivered a smooth, almost sports car-like driving experience, something no other truck on the road could claim. It handled surprisingly well thanks to its lightweight chassis and balanced design. But here's the catch. Rotary engines aren't exactly known for fuel efficiency. In the middle of the 1970s gas crisis, that was a death sentence. With fewer than 15,000 units built, the REPU disappeared fast, but it remains a cult classic today. Some of these trucks were ahead of their time, some were just plain bad ideas, and some were so weird they never had a chance. But one thing's for sure. These bizarre pickups are some of the most fascinating machines to ever hit the road. Keep your eyes peeled. You never know when one might pop up at a car show, leaving everyone scratching their heads in wonder. Picture this. You're walking through a car show expecting to see the usual lineup of classic muscle cars, gleaming hot rods, and pristine vintage trucks. But then, out of the corner of your eye, you spot something that makes you do a double take. Is that a pickup with a side ramp? A Jeep that looks like it belongs in a toy store? A factory-built F-150 that seems to have been designed for a secret agent? Welcome to the world of rare and bizarre pickups, the trucks that defied expectations, ignored tradition, and, in some cases, made people wonder what the designers were thinking. Take this one, for example, a Chevrolet truck that doesn't even have the engine where it's supposed to be. The Corvair ramp side was one of the weirdest takes on a pickup truck ever to hit the streets. Instead of the typical front engine layout, Chevy decided to throw the engine in the back, borrowing an air-cooled flat 6 from the Corvair car. That decision alone made it an oddball, but what really made this thing stand out was the side loading ramp built right into the truck bed. Instead of awkwardly lifting heavy cargo, you could just roll it straight in. Delivery drivers and small business owners loved the idea, but the general public? Not so much. Traditional truck buyers were used to their big V8s and front-heavy designs, and they weren't about to take a gamble on some futuristic rear-engine experiment. By 1964, Chevrolet had enough and pulled the plug. Now, decades later, this weird little truck has become a rare collector's dream, with its funky mid-century styling and truly one-of-a-kind engineering. And then there's the Jeep Forward Control Series, which looked like someone squished a regular pickup truck into a compact box. These things took the whole concept of a cab-over design and ran with it, putting the driver and passenger practically right on top of the front wheels. The idea was simple: keep the truck small while maximizing cargo space. And it worked. These Jeeps were workhorse, tackling off-road jobs, municipal work, and farm duties. The FC-150, with its tiny wheelbase, could maneuver into spaces that no normal truck could fit into, while the larger FC-170 gave buyers a little more muscle. But let's be real, these things looked ridiculous. The proportions were straight out of a cartoon, and people just didn't know what to make of them. They had a cult following, sure, but they never became mainstream hits. Today, though, they're gold for collectors, a reminder that Jeep was never afraid to get a little weird. Fast forward to the early 90s, and Ford decided that the best way to make a pickup look cooler was to dress it in all black. Enter the F-150 Night Edition, a truck that took a simple but effective approach. Black paint, black trim, and just a few subtle night decals to let people know it wasn't just any old work truck. No flashy graphics, no bright colors, just pure, stealthy style. But it wasn't just about looks. Under the hood, buyers could opt for either a 5.0-liter or 5.8-liter V8, giving the truck enough muscle to match its mean demeanor. It was available only for 2 years, and because it was more of an appearance package than a full-blown performance model, a lot of them disappeared over time. Finding one today is tough, but for those who love rare 90s pickups, the Night Edition is one of the coolest hidden gems out there. Speaking of hidden gems, have you ever heard of the GMC Caballero? Probably not, and that's because it was doomed to live in the shadow of its more famous twin, the Chevrolet El Camino. Mechanically, they were practically identical. Same car-like ride, same ability to haul small loads, same V8 options. But while Chevy was out there marketing the El Camino as a pop culture icon, GMC barely made a sound about the Caballero. It even had its own rare performance version, the Diablo Edition, sporting wild decals and a muscle car-inspired attitude. But hardly anyone bought them, and today, they're one of the hardest-to-find pickups from that era. If you ever come across one, consider yourself lucky, because they're rarer than you'd think. A truck with the engine in the back, a bold idea that didn't go as planned. The rear engine experiment that failed. Now, if you were around in the 70s, you might remember a truck with a name that was impossible to take seriously: Dodge's The Dude. Yes, that was the actual name of a special edition Dodge D100. Clearly trying to cash in on the muscle car craze, Dodge dressed this thing up with bold, sweeping stripes along the sides and a badge on the fender that proudly declared its name, The Dude. It didn't get any performance upgrades, but if you wanted a truck that looked like it belonged in a street race, this was it. The marketing was just as quirky as the truck itself, with Don Knotts, yes, the guy from The Andy Griffith Show, appearing in ads to promote it. But even with all that personality, the dude wasn't a big seller. Dodge only cranked out about 1,500 to 2,000 of these things, and most of them vanished over the years. Finding one today is nearly impossible, making it one of the most obscure yet strangely fascinating pickups from the muscle car era. Looking back, it's clear that automakers were never afraid to take risks with their truck designs. Whether it was Chevrolet's rear-engine experiment, Jeep's forward control oddity, Ford's blacked-out stealth truck, GMC's forgotten hybrid, or Dodge's muscle truck mashup, each of these pickups dared to be different. Some were ahead of their time, some were just plain weird, but all of them carved out a special place in automotive history. And while they may not have been big hits when they were new, today they stand as rare treasures for those who appreciate the unconventional. Picture this, a pickup truck that throws every conventional rule out the window. The Chevrolet Corvair. Greenbrier wasn't just another workhorse, it was an experiment, a challenge to everything people thought a truck should be. Instead of the usual front-mounted engine, this thing had an air-cooled flat six sitting in the back, a rear-engine pickup. That alone should tell you it wasn't playing by the standard rules. It handled like no other truck out there, with a low center of gravity that gave it stability unheard of in the pickup world. Sure, it wasn't exactly packing muscle under the hood, but it could move like a dream compared to the lumbering giants of the era. And then there was its body design. No traditional tailgate setup here. Instead, it had multiple side access doors, making it way easier to load and unload cargo. It was a game changer for delivery drivers, tradesmen, and small businesses, until they realized the rest of America wasn't quite ready for something so different. People wanted their pickups with big front-mounted engines and classic beds, not some space-age van truck hybrid. By 1965, it was gone. Today, spotting one in the wild is like finding a mythical beast, rare, unusual, and prized by those who appreciate automotive oddities. Before Jeep revived the Gladiator name in 2019, there was the original J Series, a truck built to survive just about anything. Born from Jeep's military DNA, this pickup was rugged in a way few trucks ever were. It was designed for rough terrain, bad roads, and places where civilization was just a vague idea. Unlike other trucks of its time, it rode on the same platform as the Wagoneer, making it unexpectedly smooth and refined for a vehicle built to take a beating. It wasn't just tough, it was smartly designed, way ahead of its time. One of the rarest versions was the early thrift side model with its step-side bed, a style choice that made it even more unique. And then there were the engines. Over the years, the J-Series got some serious power upgrades, including an AMC 401 cubic-inch V8 that turned it into an off-road powerhouse. But despite all its strengths, it never gained the mainstream popularity of Ford and Chevy pickups. Maybe it was Jeep's niche branding. Maybe it was the limited dealer network. But either way, it stayed under the radar. Fast forward to today, and it's become a collector's prize. Restored models are now snapped up by enthusiasts who know they found something special. A truck that was decades ahead of its time, waiting for the world to catch up. Trucks are supposed to haul loads, not burn rubber. At least, that's what most people thought until the Ford SVT Lightning roared onto the scene. This wasn't a regular pickup. It was a muscle truck, a street racer disguised as something practical. Ford's Special Vehicle Team, SVT, took an F-150 and transformed it into something outrageous, giving it a sport-tuned suspension and a beastly 5.8-liter Windsor Viv 8. It was quick, really quick for a truck, but Ford wasn't done. The second-generation Lightning, 1999 to 2004, took things to an entirely new level. Out went the old engine, and in came a supercharged 5.4-liter Triton VV8, delivering a monstrous 380 horsepower. That made it the fastest production truck of its time, beating some legit sports cars in 0 to 60 races. But it wasn't just about speed. It had the looks to match, with aggressive styling, a lowered stance, and a growl from the side exit exhaust that let everyone know it meant business. By the time Studebaker introduced the Champ, the company was already struggling to stay afloat. But instead of rolling over, they got creative. The Champ was their last-ditch attempt at a pickup, and to save money, they pulled a move straight out of the parts bin playbook. They took the cab from their compact Lark sedan and stuck it onto a truck frame. The result? A pickup that looked like a Frankenstein creation. Part sedan, part workhorse, all Studebaker. Despite its oddball origins, the Champ had some genuinely ahead-of-its-time features. Take the sliding rear window, for example, something that later became standard in modern pickups. It also offered a range of engine options, from a modest inline-6 to a punchy 289 V8. But here's where things got weird. Studebaker couldn't afford to design a new truck bed, so they repurposed an old one from the 1940s. It was practical, sure, but it looked outdated next to the sleeker beds of Ford and Chevy trucks. Unsurprisingly, the Champ didn't sell well. Studebaker shut down U.S. production just 2 years later, sealing the Champ's fate as a forgotten relic of an automaker's last stand. Today, collectors love it for its quirky history and one-of-a-kind design. A reminder of a time when independent automakers were still trying to compete against the giants. Ever heard of the Plymouth Scamp? Don't worry, most people haven't. It was one of the shortest-lived pickups in history, lasting for just one model year in 1983. Basically, it was a rebadged Dodge Rampage, and if that name doesn't ring a bell either, you're not alone. This was Chrysler's attempt at a compact front-wheel drive pickup, a truck that looked more like a car but still had a tiny bit of utility. Unlike the standard body-on-frame trucks, the Scamp had a unibody design, making it light, fuel-efficient, and easy to drive. The problem? It was powered by a 2.2-liter four-cylinder engine that barely made 96 horsepower. It wasn't fast, it wasn't powerful, and despite its practicality, nobody really wanted a Plymouth-branded pickup. Chrysler must have figured that out quickly because they pulled the plug after only 2,184 units were built. Finding one today is nearly impossible, because most were used up and scrapped long ago. But for those who love forgotten automotive oddities, the Scamp is a fascinating piece of history, an experiment that barely had a chance before fading into oblivion. Each of these trucks dared to challenge the norm in one way or another, whether it was the Greenbrier's rear-engine madness, the Gladiator's off-road durability, the Lightning's speed demon nature, the Champ's unconventional mashup, or the Scamp's attempt at being a small and efficient hauler. They all stand as reminders that the automotive world isn't just about what sells, it's about the wild, the weird, and the ones that almost made it. Do you think automakers should take more risks, or are these bizarre experiments proof that some ideas should stay on paper? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe for more wild automotive content.